Ed Dixon, thank you for gracing my beloved city of Pittsburgh with such talent and class and wit and charm. We are so glad to have you here,
I'm
sir.
so happy to be here. Let me tell you, I was walking to work the other day and I stepped off the curb and I suddenly had a flashback. I was looking at the surroundings. I've been in Pittsburgh every decade since maybe the late 60s. Now, not every year, but every decade. And I suddenly flashed on how many times I've been here, how many shows, how many different theaters. And it was just, I was just stepping off the curb and it was like, oh, will you look at that? You know, I always loved Pittsburgh. I'm not just saying that. You know, there's a thing in the cosmos about, you know, people go to Pittsburgh, they go, oh, steel town, you know. And it hasn't been a steel town since before I came here the first time 45 years ago.
That's true. It's actually more of an arts and culture town than it is a steel town.
It is, and it's a beautiful town, and the landscape is beautiful, and the mountain is beautiful, and the downtown area is beautiful, the restaurants are beautiful.
Where to begin with you?
I have done a lot of things.
You have. Yeah. And I mean, in just looking at your bio, you have been very successful in several fields. More so than most people achieve in one. I mean, Broadway actor, writer, composer. Where do you find the time for this?
Well, I don't do anything else. I'll
tell you
that.
But you started early.
I did. I wrote 3 musicals, book music and lyrics, when I was in high school. I was that kid.
Yeah. Now, and we won't say what year, but I did read that you worked with Busby Berkeley. Is this true?
No, this is something no one's going to say to you. At least I certainly don't imagine that they are. I worked with Busby Berkeley and Ruby Keeler. My Broadway debut was No No Nanette.
Wow.
And you know, back then people didn't do old musicals. So for somebody to be mounting a musical from the 1920s, it was so radical. In the building next door was Pippin.
Wow.
And we were next door. You could hear it through the wall.
Give me the first name that comes to your mind when I say actor that you're dying to work with again.
Anne Margaret.
Really?
Anne Margaret was the dearest, sweetest, kindest, most loving, most glamorous, and I never got over it.
I would presume that you have a high opinion of the Pittsburgh Public Theater, seeing as how you have trusted them with the world premiere of your latest work, Hotel. Am I Lotel?
Lotel.
Lotel. Okay, so that is the correct. Okay.
Yeah, it's the French word for hotel, you know, because it takes place in a hotel. And I mean, actually, this idea came from Ted. We had a meeting years ago about developing a project, and Ted said, I've always wanted somebody to write a play about Père Lachaise, and I didn't know what Père Lachaise was, so I'm like, what?
Is it a perfume?
Yeah.
A wine?
And he told me it's the most famous cemetery in the world. It's in Paris, and half the famous people in the world are buried there. And he handed me a sheet of paper that had a list of about 50 of the really luminaries.
He just happened to have that on him.
I think he had this planned.
Oh, okay. Either that or he just has weird hobbies.
It was sitting right there, you know? And I didn't get it right away that what a good idea it was, but about 6 hours later I went, wait a minute. Okay. And that was one of those things. For about 28 days I wrote around the clock and had a first draft. You know, what we're working on today is about the 1,000th draft. We're way into the process.
Have you ever had one just come out perfect?
Oh God, no. I mean, I have had things kind of belch out the way they were going to go. Cloak and Dagger, which was just in DC, I got an idea and I made an outline, and when the thing was up, it followed that outline, you know, pretty much to a T.
Now, it's not a great spoiler to reveal that most of the characters in your play are deceased.
Yes, that is not a spoiler.
We've got the likes of Jim Morrison, Sarah Bernhardt, Oscar Wilde, all find themselves in this hotel. Now, I imagine that you put some of these personalities together and it kind of writes itself, maybe. I mean, not to diminish your craft, but it's a great concept.
It's absolutely true. It's really There are six of these famous people. There's the poor, beleaguered waiter who has to take care of all of them in perpetuity, which is a story unto itself. And then there's a young woman who comes to the center. She's the only living person in the play. But when you put this particular group of people together, there's a particular kind of chemistry that happens, and it did do a lot of the writing itself.
So why these six
Yes,
figures
yes.
in particular?
I scanned that list that Ted gave me originally, and of course I did a lot of homework after that. I had a response to these people. Well, I'll tell you one thing, it's going to look like $1 million.
Yeah.
The set by James Noon, he's a designer I've worked with before, he's fantastic. The set is beautiful, and it has to do with Ted's concept. It's a beautiful concept. He wanted this hotel to be very old world and very glamorous, and it's gigantic.
And we are in the rehearsal space for the show right now.
Yes, yes.
It's getting its finishing touches
Yes,
this
yes.
week and next before it goes up. And I think we might even be in chairs that will be used on the set.
These chairs are on the
This
set.
is
yes.
an honor. So this is going to be theater history
Yes,
right
yes.
here. Now, this is not your first time at the rodeo for world premieres. So, I mean, how do you feel like the night before? Do you get nervous?
You know, I was just in the theater this morning taking pictures, and like to see them building a thing that a few years ago was this idea in my head, it's very thrilling, you know. And to see, I know some of these actors from before, they're wonderful actors, and to see really wonderful actors learning your lines and they do lots and lots of homework. So, you know, the one who's playing Bernhardt is reading all these books on Bernhardt, and Oscar Wilde is reading, so it takes on all these characteristics of its own. It's very thrilling, but this process has been very joyful. Like, it is to be in a beautiful place with beautiful people. We've had time. This isn't a rush job, so we've gotten to like spend time with each piece of it. We've gotten to talk about each idea in the play, and there's been a kind of largesse about it that you often don't have. You know, oftentimes you just get it up and go, you know. And there's a kind of fun in that too. But this has been really joyful and gracious. So,
a positive chapter in your book, and
Indeed.
there is such a thing.
There is such
you
a
have
thing.
written your memoirs.
Yes.
Now, I think that is the mark of a true personality, when you have gotten to the point when you pen your memoirs, not just write your autobiography, pen your memoirs.
Yes.
And I love the title, "Secrets of a Life on Stage, ... and off."
Yes.
Now, if that's not a compelling title.
A lot has happened. And we were like, what are we doing here? T for two. And we all thought we were in a big bomb, and then we opened.
Wow.
Mega hit. That was really a shot. What a way to begin a career.
What was it like working with Busby Berkeley?
Busby's days had passed.
Oh, okay.
My favorite thing that ever happened with her, we were on stage, 2,000 people in the audience, and she had a frog in her throat, and she was talking to Helen Gallagher, and she kept trying to, and finally she looked out at the audience and went, "Excuse me." Colm Wilkinson, I was nominated opposite him in Les Mis, which cost like $50 million in my little show, and I thought it was a joke. And I'm like, how dare you leave me this rude message? You haven't been on Broadway, and you think you'll never be on Broadway, and you're going to open calls and trying this and you just don't have a clue which end is up, and then all of a sudden somebody goes, be in my show, be in my Broadway show, you know, be in my Broadway show with some great big stars. Oh, I forgot to mention, I'm about to do a new Broadway show based on...
Just by the way.
Based on Hee Haw. It's called...
What?
She's a star.